People on Reddit. What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? That I'm a kissless virgin. Male. Closing in on 40. Yo, never been kissed, never went on a date, hate myself. It's not the lack of sex that makes me hate myself. It's the lack of anyone finding myself worthy of caring about. I've become scared of going out and meeting people. I know people see me as a weirdo, but other than to my shrink, I don't talk about it. Whatever aspect of life, I always feel I'm not good enough. Friends don't remain friends. Jobs are probably above my level. Any love interest I might have could never give a shit about me, and for any hobbies I just don't have the talent. Or that is how I see it after too many years of feeling and being alone. I was drinking with my ex in her room when I was 19 years old. She was 23. All of a sudden I started seeing images of my uncle in my grandmother's bathroom. He was motioning me into the shower and telling me to touch his weenie. I felt like I was 5 years old, seeing that. Luckily my ex was really great and realized I was having a full-on anxiety attack during that moment. I was holding my knees, rocking back and forth, with my eyes closed. She asked me what was happening, and I was able to dictate what I was seeing. I was probably in the best place for this to have happened. I still don't know what that was all about. I don't know if it was real or something my brain made up in a drunken state. It's almost been 10 years since. When I was around 9 years old, I used my mom's credit card to sign up my shitty alcoholic stepfather for a corn website in hopes of starting a fight and her leaving him. My cousin raped me when I was a kid, and to this day I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. I'm the spitting image of my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced I'm the product of an affair between my mother and supposed grandfather. More disturbingly, this would probably be one of the most lighthearted revelations about my family. In middle school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. A man broke into my home about 10 years ago. Well, kind of. He knocked, I answered the door, and he pushed his way in. He spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and tried to extort me for protection, or he and his brothers of doom would come and kill me. He was huge, ex-Navy, if he was to be believed. Drunk as hell, hand covered in blood, holding a broken bottle. I was terrified. I told him to leave. He wouldn't. He was getting aggressive. I told him I would splatter his brains against the wall if he didn't. I didn't have a gun at the time. Anyway, he didn't leave. I went into my kitchen and grabbed a knife and sliced at him a few times. He staggered away, seemingly okay. I assumed he was all right, just wounded a bit. I never saw him again. A neighbor told me days later a man was found dead, some wounds on his arms. I can only guess he bled out, but I never got questioned, somehow. There was a lot of blood in and around my house. I lived in a pretty seedy area, so I guess the cops just didn't care. The guy was apparently a repeat criminal. I killed a man, at least indirectly, and have never told anybody. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated, and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and spent the next 15 years being a mother, paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated, and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. 2 days before my dad took his life, he called me telling me what he wanted to do, and I hung up on him. I hung up on my suicidal father. He then killed himself on my 17th birthday. Everybody in the family thinks it was coincidence that he took his life on my birthday, but I know the real reason. I've never told a single member of my family as I know they would blame me. Ever since he took his life, I have this recurring nightmare of seeing my dad in a grocery store passing at the other end of the aisle. He's pushing an empty shopping cart and briefly looks at me at the other end of the aisle but keeps going. When I run to where he was, he's now at the other end aisle. Rinse and repeat until wake up screaming. Some secrets will haunt you until you die. Cutting off my dad was the best decision I've made. I hope it kills him inside every day to not know how his only child and only grandchild are doing. I tried for years to have a relationship with him since age 10 until 18. From 10 to 13 he would tell me he wished I would have died when I was sick as a kindergartner because I wouldn't have tattled and ruined his marriage to my mom. I tried multiple times but was unsuccessful. I still tried to have a relationship with him for my mom, to help her financially, and would visit him for months. He'd keep me locked in a closet for hours at age 14. From 16 minus 18 he thought throwing money around would help me, but I was already working by then and it didn't matter. I still have my daily battle where I ask myself if he's right or not, but I see my kid and I can't imagine thinking such vile things about them at that age like my dad did about me.